This is Wellow Park. This is the upper section, as I often refer to it as. I'm not going in this bit, but I'm going down through this bit. But then there's parts of Wellow Park that really drop down. They're on quite an incline. I always call that the deep section. Sounds really good, that, doesn't it? Anyway, as you can see, Wellow Park is slowly starting to green up. We've had a little bit of cooler weather. I won't call it cold, don't think it was that bad. And we've had a little bit of snow. And typically with snow in late March, it doesn't hang around for very long. Now, spring is starting to get back on track. We're getting back towards the temperatures that we should be having. And although they're only just barely into double figures, there should be a few bits and bobs around. There's a nice goat sallow in full flower there. It's surprising how different examples of the same species vary in their timing of flowering. Goat sallow is an excellent example of such a tree or shrub, depending on your inclination as to what to call it. So, walk through here and down into the deep. Well, the walk down this woodland ride here at Wellow Park towards the deeper section where I want to go is now becoming lined with these beautiful flowers. You couldn't wish for a more beautiful pale lemon yellow flower than the UK's native primrose. Absolutely beautiful. It does take some beating, and these flowers will soon be starting to attract many queen bumblebees. I've disturbed quite a few bumblebees which have been warming up on the surface of the ground. The first inclination that you know of them is when you hear that sort of dull buzzing sound, and then they fly up and out. All have been Bombus terrestris. And locally, I've still not seen Bombus hypnorum yet, the tree nesting bumblebee. I really must have a wander around and have a look around local gardens to see whether the queens are foraging there. In the meantime, I'll leave this lovely little view to you. Well, I've come off the main track now, and I'm going to walk down to the left. I'll show you the direction we're heading in a minute, but this shot here is a good example of the habitat that we're moving into. This is long since coppiced woodland. Wellow Park is made up of many compartments of woodland coppiced in this fashion. It has a really good understory of ground flora, and it's amazing how the variety of ground flora and the biodiversity of such flora changes within the space of half a mile or so to the west. We go from the dry sandy heathland soils of Sherwood Forest, which is extremely poor botanically, and then you come from those sandy soils into these wetter clay-based soils of the likes of Wellow Park and Curtain up to Treswell Wood and Eaton and Gamston Woods towards Retford. This is a typical scene that could be filmed in any of those woods. The white or developing white carpet of flowers that you can see now are wood anemones. Some of them are even starting to turn pink. But it's beautiful. I do love this part of Wellow Park. It is a nice wood, one of my favourites. And this is the small narrow track that I'm following. Luckily, I've just missed the motorbikers that have been through here within the last half hour. I know that because I saw them at the bottom end near Booton. This is one of their regular routes. So hopefully no distant sound of motorcycle riders. So that's the way we're going. I best make a start. Does look beautiful, doesn't it? just beyond the line of wood anemones that you can see there, and the bumblebee that you might be able to make out, the Bombus terrestris, which is looking for somewhere to call home. It really drops off. You'll see it shortly because I'm going over the edge, as they used to say, before never being seen again. But it does look particularly fantastic. I must admit, this is one of the best displays of wooded anemone that I've seen in any Nottinghamshire woodland. And here's another view looking further down into the wood. You can see just how extensive these wooded anemones are. It really is a carpet, but the carpet of wooded anemones is intermingled with a rather unobtrusive, tiny green flowered dog's mercury, with which this wood is also completely covered almost. Neither of these two plants you'll get anywhere near showing their faces in Sherwood Forest. And here you start to get an idea of how steeply this part of Wellow Park drops off. It really is extremely steep. You're almost getting towards a 45-degree angle. And once again, look, the whole of this section of Wellow Park is carpeted with dog's mercury and wood anemone. It's truly beautiful. Although further down, where you can't see in this shot, there appears to be no wood anemone whatsoever. At Wellow Park, one of the main invertebrates that specialises in sitting and resting on smooth barked ash trees like this is the harvestman Megaboonus Diadema. But there's another species that, if you want to see it because you've never seen it, you only have to look on a few such examples of trees. This is the kidney spot ladybird. It's a species I've not showed you before. But the ideal place, the most likely place you'll ever find this, is walking up and down or just sitting, as in this instance, on the bark of ash trees. Very common, often where it occurs, but usually you'll find sort of 2 or 3 examples on the same trunk. This one's nicely tucked in while it's waiting for the sun to do its magic. I think the sun might struggle today though to make this little chap active. But it's an all black ladybird with 2 large red spots. It's considerably smaller than the sometimes similarly marked harlequin ladybird. This is only about 4 mil from head to toe, so to speak. Listen to that. That's the lovely, mellow and fluty song of the mistle thrush. Usually one of the first birds to sing, often in January or February. It's got many different local names, although technically and scientifically known as the mistle thrush. Locally it can be called stormcock and other names. In Nottinghamshire, or at least in Lamley, we always referred to it as a siecock. Don't ask me why. I was always told never to question me elders, but that's what it was always known as. But it's a beautiful song. To be honest, I don't really hear it that often in woodland, but you will hear it probably local to your area, as long as you've got some amount of greenery. This is a fabulous and beautiful piece of Nottinghamshire woodland. How many of you knew that somewhere like this existed in Nottinghamshire? The plant, the leafy plant that you can see behind me, or to the side of me, is wild garlic. Beautiful smell. Although if you don't like garlic, you'll think it's bloody awful. The flowers are just starting to appear, they're just starting to break through now. In another couple of weeks, given favourable weather, this will be a picture. And the white flowers of wild garlic will take over from the white flowers of wood anemone. This is an absolutely fabulously beautiful spot. I love it. And just listen to that. What better accompaniment could you have? Well, I've been in this spot for getting on towards half an hour now, and I just love it. I don't want to leave it. It's a fabulous little spot. Even the chiff chaffs come to join in the fun. Well, my plan, now I'm down here, I'm not going back up there, is to head down this little well-trodden pathway. It's a shame I've got to leave this little spot. Well, I go on about ash a lot, but I've never showed you how to identify it, and it is the most easiest of all our native trees to identify. This is a young branch or twig of ash. It always has this sort of dark, almost olive green coloration to it. But the big giveaway to identify ash is the buds. The buds are black. It's the only tree that you're likely to come across, certainly in the wild in the UK, that has black buds. Very easy to identify. And the buds on any branches of ash are well spaced apart. You can see there's the top one. There's a good sort of 2 inches there, and then between that pair there and that pair of buds there, there's another sort of 3 to 4 inches. Interestingly, on these, if you look at the placing of the buds, you see those 2 buds there? They're sort of flat to my hand. And if I keep them flat, you'll see that the next buds are opposing, look. They're different. And then the next pair of buds beyond them are once again flat to my hand. Even I've learned something there. I've never ever looked at an ash branch like this or a twig like this. So anyway, very easy to identify. The younger growth is this olive green colour and the buds are jet black. It's quite a woodland of discovery, and this is an area of Wellow Park that I've not seen before. I've not walked through it. I've walked around it, but I've not seen this. This is almost like a secret woodland. It's a fabulous spot. contrary to popular belief. I do sometimes look for invertebrates while I'm filming these things. Although, I have to admit, at the moment, or just lately, it's not been that often. But I do love to lift up bark, always remembering to put it back as close to how you found it in the first place. Looking under bark is often like opening an unknown Christmas present, or one of those Christmas presents that you weren't expecting. It can have that effect. While you may have a general idea of what's likely to be underneath the bark that you're about to lift up, nature often springs that element of surprise. That surprise often comes out in expletives. No surprises today, you'll be pleased to hear. I'm now starting the ascent back up to the top. I could do with Sherpa Tenzing, to be honest, or his son, or his donkey, but it's lovely. The cloud, or bit of cloud that we had earlier on, has now dissipated, or moved away. Now we're left with blue skies, so the temperature will start to creep up, especially in these little sunny pockets and on the sides of tree trunks. Maybe our little harvestman friend may make an appearance. Isn't that just a picture? Beautiful. Spring really is a truly marvellous time. We're so lucky. I know everybody moans about the weather and that, but it's the weather that helps us have the varying seasons. Spring is just a joy. You've got the new grass that you can see now, the green of the Dog's Mercury further up this partly overgrown woodland ride. It's beautiful. You don't get such vibrant greens as this once you get past May. And then on the left, along the edge of the trees that you can see there, there's the opening leaves of hazel. And a few other trees further up are starting to burst into leaf. And the greens, how they're lit up from behind by the sun. It's fabulous. I must admit, when I set off from the car, or indeed from home today, I didn't think that I would be videoing such a beautiful day. This is glorious. There's a slight breeze. Some might find it cool, depends where you are. In here, I don't care. It's beautiful. And this picture proves it. Now then, on here, I have found by complete accident, I was just photographing a small larva caterpillar on the other side, and then this trundled down right centre of the screen. You may have just seen it move. This is the tiny Megaboonus Diadema. Now this is not quite adult yet. This is the smallest example I've ever seen, but then again, this is by far the earliest I've ever seen. And this, surprisingly enough, is on elm. You can't take your eyes off it because you'll soon lose it. And if you've lost it, it is he says, trying to find it again, just above my nail, where that little bit of bark sort of goes into a V at a 1 o'clock angle. It sat in there. Unless it was to move, as it is now, you would never see it. Which is why it's so much easier to find on the smooth-barked, coppiced ash that are in this section. But this is by far the smallest example I've ever seen. And they tend to sort of wander quite a bit when you see them. But the camouflage, I can see where it is now, but you really need to follow this. Obviously I'll be dropping photos in, or I would have dropped photos in. This is tiny. I didn't think I'd see one. Still thought it was a bit early and that the temperature was too cool. It has clouded up again now, but obviously the sun just coming out enables tree trunks, or the southern side of tree trunks, to warm up. That increases your invertebrate activity. In case you've lost it, it's just here, sat in this crescent-shaped bit of bark. It looks nothing to the eye, but to a decent camera, it's an absolute stonker, with those eyelashes to die for. And that's how they typically rest. Head down, as do most harvestmen. Certainly those on trees that I found. Platypus pinetorum always rests head down. Typically, I would imagine that Megaboonus Diadema has the same diet of small invertebrates that it catches openly on the trunks of trees. What a little beauty! There you are. You spent 3.5 minutes staring at the bark of a tree. How entertaining was that? But in Nottinghamshire, this is still an uncommon harvestman. There's a record from Bunny. Really must go to Bunny Wood sometime. And there's a record from Sherwood Forest, which, well, the recorder is top bloke. Never seen it there in anywhere in Sherwood Forest. All our records have come from the likes of Wellow Park, Eaton and Gamston Woods, and other places, all the woodlands, such as this, on clay-based soils. Maybe I've not looked hard enough. More effort needed, the teacher would no doubt put on the school report. But I'm so pleased to have found this. And in a few more weeks, give it another month, and we'll come back and we'll see if we can find some that's adult. This is another parthenogenetic species, if I remember rightly. No males. These are obviously some females of a species that never gets a headache. It's truly beautiful. Woodland is, especially when it's carpeted with wood anemones, as Wellow Park is here, coupled with the aromatic smell of wild garlic, and that's a smell that will just become stronger and stronger. We're only at the relative beginning of spring, just over a week into it, astronomically. Each year, our springs get little bit earlier. The woodland is certainly the place to be for spring, I think. Woodland flowers you might have seen the Lounge Wood video. If not, I urge you all to stop this one and go look at that one. But in the few days, probably about a week since I did the Lounge Wood video, there's been an advancement in the flowers and in the wooded anemones, despite the efforts of the British weather. The extremely cold and Arctic blast that they were frightening everybody about has come and gone. Wasn't anything really. Held things back for a few days, but spring has sprung again. If only every day was like this. If only every day was spring.